Hey, I just want to flag that today's recording talks about mental health and about suicide. It's not a subject that we should be shying away from, and it's not a subject that we shouldn't be talking about. Obviously, some of the subject matter can occasionally perhaps trigger certain people and certain past experiences. So please just be aware of that as you listen to today's show.
In 2014, one of my friends took their life. I was completely unaware that he was struggling, and I'd seen him a few days before, but he seemed fine. I thought everything was A-okay. Found out a few days later via social media that he had ended his life. I was ushered to the front and stood next to him in his coffin at the front, looking back at this room of faces. So just looking around and seeing all those faces and just seeing the amount of people there that loved him, missed him, were there for him, it really sort of hit home that how could he have all these people yet feel like this was his only option? And then a guy called Paul actually was in a really bad place. A few days later, he actually went to end his life. And when he was there, he thought about the conversation we'd had in the barber chair, and thankfully that was enough to get him back in his car and start his journey to recovery. And if anyone is suffering out there, don't suffer alone. You're not alone. And if anyone thinks that someone's suffering, then ask them. Just ask them outright how they're doing.
Hey, just before we jump into the show, got a little favour to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please make sure you are subscribed on the platform of your choice. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever platform that might be. The more people who subscribe and the more people who like and rate the show, the more we give you an opportunity to have some great takeaways. It doesn't take you too long, and it would be a great help to us to help us grow the show. For now, that's it. Enjoy today's recording. Tom, thank you very much for joining us on the Business Takeaway podcast. Do you want to give a bit of introduction who you are and about your history?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Tom Chapman. I'm the founder of Lions Barber Collective and here to talk training. I've been cutting hair for well over 20 years now. Then that led to me working in mental health after a loss of a friend, where I started Lions Barber Collective, and off the back of that was here to talk training. So, like I said, I was cutting hair for over 20 years. I was a global barber director, which basically meant that I was traveling the world cutting hair on stage, quite prominent in the barbering world, everywhere from Hawaii to Brazil, Australia, anywhere. And then in 2014, one of my friends took their life. I was completely unaware that he was struggling, completely unaware that he was contemplating suicide. And I'd seen him a few days before. I was on lunch break from cutting hair, so it was a very quick interaction. But he seemed fine. He'd just come back from traveling. And I thought everything was A-okay. Found out a few days later via social media that he had ended his life. And it was my first experience of that ever. Of any real mental health, to be honest with you. And he was only 27, and it really hit me hard. And there was a lot of questions, like why, the why questions, why would you do this? Why didn't you speak to somebody? Why didn't you seek help? Why couldn't you get help? All those sort of things. But also a lot of what if questions. So what if, when I saw him, I'd recognized that he was struggling? What if I had asked him? What if he'd said he was? Would I have known what to do? And ultimately, the answer to all those questions is I wouldn't have known what to do, and I wouldn't have been able to recognize. And that kind of made me really think about just suicide in a whole, which is something I'd never really thought about before. And then there was a key point when I went to his funeral, and it was jam packed. A 27-year-old guy. It was full, and it was spilling out into the foyer. And I was one of the first people not to have a seat. I was ushered to the front and stood next to him in his coffin at the front, looking back at this room of faces, which is quite a unique position to be in at a funeral, right? You normally it's quite an insular emotional journey. You're looking at the back of people's heads and someone speaking about the person you love. So just looking around and seeing all those faces and just seeing the amount of people there that loved him, missed him, were there for him, it really, really sort of hit home that how could he have all these people yet feel like this was his only option at that moment. And I after that was really a turning point, and a point that really does keep me going in this journey as well. Whenever there's sort of difficult times, I remember that moment But it made me think, well, I need to do something about this. I didn't know what at the time. I remember talking at the wake with the lads afterwards about, we need to do something. This can't happen to 27-year-old guys. Like, he had so much to live for. And it didn't manifest straight away. It kind of happened over a case of sort of like a year later-ish. I wanted to do something. I managed to, being high profile in the barbering world, I managed to get a load of barbers together, 30 of us, high profile barbers, and they were going to all donate an image of a haircut, and we're going to put it into a coffee table style book, put it into barbershops around the world, around the country, whatever, and have messaging and raise money for charity. And this is mad, really, because at the beginning, I put it out to the group of barbers that we got together, options for charities. And one of the guys mentioned suicide prevention. And I just like, God, how did I not think of that? Because I wasn't aware that there were suicide prevention charities. I wasn't aware it was such a thing, was such a problem, and the biggest killer in men, the biggest killer in, young men as well, 3 times more likely than women to take their life. So it kind of all fell into place. And I thought, well, if it's something that I'm unaware of, and I've lost someone to suicide, how many other guys are unaware that this is actually a big issue and there is support out there? So we went with suicide prevention. We were called Lions Barber Collective because the barbers I gathered were from England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, like the rugby team, the British Lions. And we started doing it, and it kind of really, really blew up. It took off far quicker than I expected. I thought it was just going to be an annual, book that we brought out with haircuts talking about stuff, raising money for charity. And we got a lot of interest. I mean, it was hard work, don't get me wrong. Trying to organise 30 barbers was a bit like herding cats, because, they're always cutting hair. They're not on computers. It's hard to connect them. And so we got it done. But whilst I was doing that project, I was talking to my clientele in my salon about what we were doing. And the response was incredible. They all said to me, you helped me when I was going through insert problem here, finances, divorce, relationship problems, children, whatever. And I didn't realize I was doing that as a barber, cutting people's hair, as a hairdresser, cutting people's hair. I was just having interactions with people and listening. But the amount of people that said that to me was quite staggering. And then a guy called Paul actually was in a really bad place. And I hadn't had any real training at the time. I just told him about resources that were available, Papyrus that were raising money for, and it's okay to seek help and all of that. And he was in a really bad place. I didn't realize he was suicidal at the time, but he actually left the chair that day. A few days later, he actually went to end his life. And when he was there, he thought about the conversation we'd had in the barber chair. And thankfully, that was enough to get him back in his car, drive back to his parents' house, and start his journey to recovery. I can very happily say that he's married now with a baby, and he's got his own house and business, and he's thriving. So, but that made me stop and think again. And if I could do that with little to no training, just by encouraging these guys in my chair, then how many other barbers and hairdressers around the world are having these conversations every week? So that led to the sort of growth of the idea. The training then developed, because I thought, if I could do it with no training, what could I do with training? We tried to get barbers to come and do mental health first aid. It was a big struggle to get them to come and do 2 days mental health training. It wasn't attractive to them. We managed to get 12 to come on to a session, and they said that it was, at the end, they said it was very cold and clinical, and they felt, some of them said they felt a bit worse after the training because it was kind of depressing and all this. And it just made me think, is there a space where we can create something that is much more compact and much less diagnostic, less clinical, more about real conversations? So I worked with Dr. Peter Aitken to develop Barber Talk, which Dr. Peter Aitken is a clinical psychiatrist. So we oversaw everything to make sure everything was safe. And we developed a Barber Talk to start off with, which has now evolved into, we had Hair and Beauty Talk, because barbers wouldn't go to Hair and Beauty Talk, hair and beauty professionals wouldn't go to Barber Talk. So it's the same content, it's just more geared towards those industries. And then we got so much interest from other industries like tattoos, taxi drivers, tutors at colleges, and it just got ridiculous. We started having too many logos and too many certificates. So we've got a Here to Talk, which is a general non-industry specific version of that, which we've done with lots of different people from all different walks of life. And the idea is the training is about early intervention. It's about preparing people in the communities, at workplaces, about bridging the gaps between the community and the resources available. Because a lot of people are struggling without knowing what's available, and they're not seeking help until it gets really bad. So the idea of the training was to recognize the signs that someone's struggling, ask good questions, know that you have permission to do so as well and feel confident doing it, listen well with empathy and without judgment, and realize you don't have to fix and solve the problem, and then help that person find the help they need. So that's the core of what we sort of developed and done over the past 10 years. It's kind of evolved. We became a charity. The charity got closed down a couple of years ago through lack of funding, which was very frustrating, which was a very difficult time for me, actually, because it coincided with me going through a divorce. And so it was sort of like, everything happens at once, as it always does. A year or so later, I decided that because I owned the IP of Lions Barber Collective and the training program was mine anyway, we brought back the Lions Barber Collective as a pop-up. So we'd go and deliver pop-up barbershops where we go into all sorts of places like construction sites, corporates, banks, sporting events, festivals, wherever, set up barber chairs. Our barbers are trained in the Here to Talk training, so how to have these conversations safely, mental health training. And we just cut hair and use the vehicle of a haircut to open up conversations around mental health. And that's a great starting point, a great interaction. We get people in the chair. They become sort of a bit of a captive audience for 20, 30 minutes. And we can talk about mental health, talk about, their thoughts on it, if they've had it, if they're struggling. And like I said, we can take that anywhere. We just need space for a barber chair and be able to plug in. So that's one part of that's the Lions Barber Collective. And then the other part is the training. And that has developed over the past 10 years. And that's kind of where we are now after sort of a bit of a journey. But that's basically what we do and what I do.
I mean, I joke with my barber. He has half an hour of my time where I can't escape halfway through my haircut because I look stupid with it. But we talk about everything. We talk about I went through some rocky times in life, and he sort of sits and talks. But I joked with him the other day that he was my counsellor. But how did you sort of realise that? Sitting in a chair, having somebody in that chair you could do more? Was it obviously you talk about your friends and what's happened, everything like that, but it is that captive audience, isn't it? Where you're just sort of sitting there and you just need to talk because you can't have a haircut in silence. You can't do that.
Yeah. But, I think when I first started out at Tony & Guy when I was 18, my manager said to me when I qualified, he said to me, like, be prepared to be a therapist as well. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm here to cut hair, and it's quite a sociable job, and I can get away with having my tattoos and the mohawk and not, which I wouldn't have been able to do in a lot of other jobs. But he was right. When I went on the shop floor, and it was difficult to solve because they don't train you for that. So I was 18 on the shop floor, and you're cutting women's hair, high pressure job. To be honest with you, high pressure, you can't mess up a woman's hair, and especially when they're paying premium prices. So you're there when you first start any job, you have to think about every single step of the process of what you're doing, the sectioning patterns, how you're cutting it, and all the rest of it. And then these women were in the chair, and they were talking to me about all sorts of things: menopause, miscarriages, divorces, all these kinds of things. I was just like, I'm not prepared for this. I've had no life experience. I don't know how to give them advice. I don't know how to. And you kind of learn on the job. And that was looking back on reflection. That is a point when I probably realised it, but not so much. Not so much to this level what I'm doing now. But that's one of the reasons why with the training we're focusing on colleges. And we're going into, like, next week I'm in Birmingham College doing a college in Birmingham, doing a load of 2 days training, and to prepare the next generation. That's something that I would love to. That's kind of a legacy piece for me. An ideal would be to train all the next generation of hair and beauty professionals before they get on the shop floor that it's okay to ask these questions. It's okay to not have the answers, but just to listen and have a little bit of confidence, because where you can signpost people to. if they need it. So that's something I'm working on with colleges, and we're doing a bit of research with Liverpool University. Well, we're getting the funding for it at the moment to do that, to prove it. And Liverpool University, the professors there, their end goal is to take it to government to try and change policy, which would be incredible, but it's something that I'm going to keep working towards anyway. So I do think that we sort of become counsellor and therapists through the job itself anyway. You have to become a bit of a social chameleon because, like you said, your barber, people see us as their barber, but that guy probably cuts 10 people's hair that day. So you share him with lots of people and you become a social chameleon. You adapt to whoever's in your chair. So, some people you won't get on with generally, and that is a big part of the haircut. You build a relationship with somebody. So there will be people you won't get on with, but you become a social chameleon. You have everyone in your chair, from, professors to policemen to just, corporates to drug dealers to, ex-cons to all sorts of stuff. It's a very varied day of talking to people. And that's a huge skill set, which I don't think is valued by society, because everyone sees their hairdresser or barber as their hairdresser or barber. They don't see the broader picture. You only ever see them with you. So I do think they have a huge skill set and are very undervalued by society generally. Our job is to cut your hair. That's all we're trained to do. We're not trained to talk to you or entertain you. Our job is literally to cut your hair. But we do all those other things on top of that whilst doing a pretty skilled job. And I think in lockdown, people realise it's not that easy to cut hair, as we did see some sites afterwards.
Yeah, my partner did actually quite a good haircut the first time round. So she looked on everything on YouTube she could find, and we messaged my barber and said, "Can you do what tips?" And he said, "Gave all his tips." And then the second time she got cocky, and I had a bit of a grade 1 all over for a few weeks, which didn't really suit me. You talk about this, like the therapist piss and a bit like that. Is there a sort of, when you talk to people like barbers, are they going, "Well, I can't do that because I've got to get I need to have a 3 years psychology degree, or I need to have all this training," but actually you're not needing them to be fully trained. You're just there. You've got to train them to be a safe space. Is that what you're sort of really trying to push together, rather than being that training?
Look, we're not trying to make people into doctors or therapists. That's not the plan at all. It's very non-clinical. It's more about guys especially. They're not good at talking unless they're doing something else. The Samaritans did a study around that. We're much better at having a conversation side by side, or when you're going for a drive, or you're going for a walk, or you're playing sports, or you're working on a car or together. So when you're doing something else, that's when guys talk. They don't do the face-to-face confrontational sort of conversations. Those are very sort of they like talking to your teacher, or doing an interview, or having a disciplinary or something. That's the times when you talk face to face over a desk. So, and there was a new study that came out, because it was thought that 72% of people who are struggling with mental health and take their life don't have any communication with mental health services in the 12 months before they die. So they're sort of unknown. But there's been new research that's come out quite recently, which actually Dr. Peter Aitken was talking to me about the other week over a coffee. They were saying that actually these guys are seeking help. They are going to these places like therapy, talking therapies, but it doesn't work for guys generally. And that's what we're trying to find is the issue, is that actually talking in these places like barbershop, tattooists, talking to your friends, whatever it may be, in social situations actually aid men better than going to talking therapy, which is something that's quite very recent information, which Dr. Peter Aitken just told me about. So that was really interesting as well, which made, I think, us as barbers, as the industry, more valuable, because we are having these conversations daily. And I think, we're a familiar stranger. You know your barber very well, but they're not part of your social circle. They're not part of your friendship group. You can talk to them quite freely. You walk away from it afterwards and leave it all behind in the barbershop. It's a normal place to go. Like people aren't going to go, "Oh, I saw you going into the barbershop the other day," because who cares if people go into barbershops all the time? So it's not, it's something, there's no shame involved around it. And I think that's a big thing that affects men, is the shame and the fear of being seen to be weak. I mean, Dr. Brene Brown did that study. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, around shame. And she studied shame in women and found that women, shame was caused by a multitude of things. It was very individualized. It could be anything depending on that individual. But when she was questioned, asked to study shame in men, it always came back to weakness, being seen to be weak. They would rather die up on their white horse rather than get down on it, is something she says in the TED Talk. She talks about it. But and mental health is being seen as a weakness for so long for guys. So I think, going into a barbershop and having a conversation with somebody is much easier to do. And then if that barber says to you, well, look, these resources are available, therapy doesn't always work. It's not a one size fits all. Try out this. There's a great community. You love playing football. There's a great community, football group down here. You're looking to lose weight. That's what's getting you down. Go and do the man versus fat football group. There's other ways around it. And I think with physical health for so long, there's, the NHS has been around for so long, but it's focused on physical health. And it's kind of like you wait until you've damaged yourself and then you go get help and they fix you and put you together again through, medication, surgery. And it is a bit sort of one size fits all, isn't it? You try this and then you try that. Whereas mental health is something that we need to address far further on before it's really affecting us, before we've got, with depression or suicide. And it's not one size fits all. Everyone's so different. Everyone has different things that help keep them well, different interests, I don't know if you've heard about the 5 steps to well-being.
I've heard of it. I don't know it well enough, but I've heard.
Yeah, so it's something. Basically, it's 5 things that we all need to do to keep ourselves mentally well, and you can find it anyway. You Google it; it'll come up and tell you those things. But it's stuff like connect with others, be physically active, learn new skills, give to others, and be present. But those 5 things are different for everyone. Like being physically active, for me, I love going to the gym. I've just got back from the gym now. That's why I've got my hoodie and hat on. But, I go to the gym and I lift weights and I like going on the Stairmaster, right? That's my cardio. I like doing that. One of the other lads in our little fitness group on our fitness group on WhatsApp, he loves running. He's doing a marathon tomorrow. Like I couldn't think of anything worse than going for a run. Like because people will often say, go for a run, it's good for your mental health. Like it's really good for you because you just get clarity and you run and do this. But if I was convinced to go, right, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll do it at the weekend. I'll set my alarm for Saturday morning, and then I'll dread it all week. The alarm would go off. I probably wouldn't go, let's face it. I'd find some sort of excuse. And then I'd feel bad for not going. So that's not going to be good for my mental health. So those 5 things, although they are, the 5 things are the same, they mean different things to different people. So I think those sort of things, like, trying to educate people on mental health and early intervention is where we're going to make a big, big difference.
I mean, I'm just recovering from a hamstring strain. I started running a couple of years ago and was recovering now, and I've not run for 6-8 weeks. And actually, on reflection, I'm not sleeping as well as I did. I'm not quite as engaged as I was. And there's other things going on around that, but it's definitely that. It's one of those pillars. Do you think it's a change in society which is changing all this, where we're at, right? You know, I don't know the facts and figures, but about loneliness, and actually people don't have really, by the age of 40 or something, you don't actually have that many close friends. And do you think that's just because of change of society we're all on social media, so we don't have to go and connect with people in different ways, and job changes and life changes? And do you think that's what's causing all these sort of the change in society to where we are?
Yeah, I don't think men have friends when they get older anyway, from what I sort of gather. I mean, they kind of, I think men, personally, I feel that men are much more spontaneous, and we do things like, you think when you're younger, you just text your mates, say, going to the pub, or you go to the pub and they'll be there already, or you go, and those sort of that culture may be changing. I don't know, because obviously I'm a bit older and don't go to the pub anymore, I go to the gym instead. But it's but it used to be much more spontaneous. Do you fancy this tonight? Or whereas I feel like women tend to have better friendship groups. They're much better at organising diaries and what have you. And any of my friends, like I said, I've been recently divorced, and having to navigate that world again was very difficult for me as a 40-year-old man. When that happened, I realized I didn't have any friends because I was focused so much on work, and I was traveling a lot for work as well, both internationally and nationally. So that when I came home, I was like, I need to be at home. I want to be at home for my boys and my family. I want to be here. So I didn't have a friendship group as much anymore because it kind of, everyone drifted off. But then being single again, having time where I didn't, this bit weird, having time where I could just be Tom and not have the kids, not be dad and not be at work, and all suddenly having free weeks or free weekends here and there. It was like, what do I do? How do I meet people? Because all my other friends that I'd lost sort of contact with were all in partnerships or married, and I can't come out this weekend because the wife has planned this, or I can't do this because this is planned, or I can't do, and it's kind of less spontaneous. So from my own personal experience, I think that guys are far more, they don't plan ahead as much, I don't think, whereas girls, you talk to a girl and they'll have something planned for the rest of the year every weekend, and this is going there, we're going to this, I think they're better at keeping that social diary than guys in general. So I do, but social media is a big thing. I think with well-being in general, I think people feel like they're connected, even though we're not. If you know what I mean, like people don't have human interaction. I think that's another reason why the barbershop works. It's one of the last spaces where guys, it's not an all male space, but generally a more male environment where guys get to be with guys, and we're not on our phones chatting. We're actually talking to somebody with no interruptions, because we have about 4 billion points of contact now. The WhatsApp and I don't know, whatever, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, text messages, bloody with Telegram, so LinkedIn, all of them. There's so many different points of contact, so it's hard to keep on touch with all those things. But when you're sitting in the barber's chair having a haircut, you're actually having a human conversation, and also human touch as well. Like, that's very rare. That license to touch is very rare now anyway. So, and any sort of touch like between two men is quite rare, right? Guys aren't generally touchy-feely, but I get to, if you came and sat in a barber chair now, I'll be able to run my hands through your hair and touch your ears, and that's often saved for lovers and mothers, and that's it, really, isn't it? That's the only people that would ever sort of touch people's heads and ears and neck, but in a barber's chair, we're allowed to do it with a cutthroat razor and sharp scissors, and you feel calm and relaxed. So it is a really privileged part of society, really, and I think it's I think that's why we need to hold on to those connections, and connecting with others is the first pillar of the 5 steps to well-being. So the isolation does lead to mental health issues or mental wellness issues. I mean, they even have a minister of loneliness. I'm not sure who it is now, but I met one a couple of years ago, and it was amazing that they see that as such an issue. The government, they've got somebody there as Minister of Loneliness. I think there's a lot to do in that space, and encouraging men to have these spaces. But what spaces are there? What spaces are there? The pub trades going. People don't drink like they used to. People can't afford to, even if they wanted to. Or they drink at home. So where should men meet? What's the answer to that?
Yeah, and that sort of, as you said, the pub culture of just going down to the pub and sitting in the pub and chewing the fat doesn't happen. And like, my friend circle are spread pretty much around the UK as well, because of the nature of my job and my career. And it then means you can't just ring your mate in the village and go, do you want to go to the pub tonight? It doesn't happen. I'm meeting up with some of my closest mates. It took us about 3 weeks to work out a date, and we had to book it 2 months in advance when we could all meet because of our schedules. If you going a bit more general, if my worry would be meeting somebody, or somebody might be worried about meeting somebody who's struggling. Somebody opens up and starts that conversation, goes, I'm really struggling. What can you say wrong stuff to somebody? Obviously you possibly can, but what do you say to somebody who start that conversation and just starts to open up? Do you just sit and listen? Do you?
Yeah,
what guidance do you do?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things, isn't it? I think we have that urge to fix it, and solve it. I think especially guys try and think quite logistically. All right, how can we solve this then? What are we gonna do? And I think, we've got I say it to the barbers all the time. Like you fix and solve problems every day. People come in with shit hair, and you make them look handsome again. That's fixed and solved. But when it comes to these sorts of conversations, you don't need to fix and solve it, because no one likes being told what to do. You don't truly know what they're going through. And if someone tries to start telling you what to do, we kind of get a bit defensive. And I honestly believe that everyone knows in themselves what they need to do to sort the problem out. I was 3 years ago, I was 25.5 stone. I was miserable in my marriage. I was working way too much, and I was just on the road all the time, eating hotel buffet breakfast every day, and sitting in a room with a bottle of wine and a takeaway every night. So, and I was miserable for it. And I knew that I needed to stop eating so much shit, and I needed to get back to the gym and do exercise. But if someone told me that, I was kind of get on defensive and end up ordering 2 pizzas rather than 1. Or it's sort of weird. It's like a self-destruct thing. But when I found out myself, and I sat down and talked with a friend of mine actually, who's really good. He's a manager of a gym. I've known him for years, cut his hair for years. And I was just talking to him, and I was saying, oh, perhaps I should. And I came up with the answers. He was good because he didn't say much. You don't have to say much. You just have to encourage them to, tell me more. What do you think you could do is a really good question, because I came up with the answers myself. I was like, well, I should probably stop booking the breakfast in the hotels, because I eat like 2,000 calories before I've even gone, because I feel like I should get my money worth, because you relate that to being on holiday for so long. And when you're doing it on work, you're like, oh, well, I've got to get my money's worth, have my breakfast. So I stopped having the breakfast, and that was the first step. And then I started using the gym in these hotels, booking a hotel with a gym, and started using, because I used it as an excuse. Like, I'm on the road, so I can't go to the gym, which is a load of nonsense, because loads of people manage it. And I created the plan myself, which mean I did it. It was my idea. I had ownership over it. And I think when you're having these conversations with people, the best thing to do is say little, listen more. Questions like don't jump in and finish their sentences. Don't jump in and try and solve their problems. One thing you can ask them is, look, do you want me to help you try and solve this, or am I here to listen? And that can be a good way to gauge the conversation. But just by listening, asking them to tell me more about this. One really good thing that has worked for me a few times is just by telling people, look, you're telling me all these issues. If I was telling you this, what advice would you give me? And it's so easy for us to advise other people on a situation. And, the people that say, well, you should, I don't know, use myself as an example, you should cut out the breakfast in the hotels all the time, stop drinking in the evenings at the hotels, maybe try the hotel gym. And then you can flip it back on you and say, well, why don't you try those things? That's your ideas. But the best thing you can do is give someone space, thank them for telling you, because you're probably the first person they've told. And I think that generally guys, we're not very comfortable in those situations. So we often shut them down very quickly with things like, oh, you'll be all right, mate. There's loads of people worse off than you. Or, come on, mate, you've got a lovely house and a great job and a blah, 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 all these things. And we're not doing it to be mean or anything. We're doing it to try and shine a positive light on the situation. Go, come on, look at all these great things you've got. But then that makes them think that their problems don't matter. They go, oh, well, they're right, actually. I shouldn't be feeling like this because I have got good things going on. But validating their problems, because everyone's individual, right? Everyone gets affected different ways. And just because you've got a nice house and a great job and a family doesn't mean that you're happy. It doesn't mean, things still happen, and there could be pressures of work or whatever it may be. But those opportunities are what we're talking about. When someone opens up, we need to seize those opportunities by thanking them. Thank you for sharing with me. I feel a lot of honor that you chose to talk to me about it, because You obviously feel safe for me. Tell me more, and then let them talk, really. Because if we miss those opportunities and we show them that their feelings don't matter, they might not talk to anyone else. And that was the one opportunity we got to help that person. And then who knows where it ends up? Worst case scenario is suicide. So feeling comfortable in those situations, remembering you don't have to fix and solve it, and just let them talk. That's all you need to do, really.
One of my best mates took me to the pub a month ago. We met up in London, and he just said, "I know some stuff's going on. Talk to me." And he just sat and allowed me to talk, and I told him a whole lot of stuff, and he was great. He just sat and listened and said, "Do you want my view on it?" And I go, "Yeah, go on then." But it was just, he just sat and listened, which was amazing.
Powerful.
Yeah,
great mates to have as well.
Yeah, I've known him for, I'd love to say only a few years, but probably about 25. But that ages me of where I'm at with him. But we've been through a lot. We've traveled the world together. We've done a lot of projects together. We had a business together and all that sort of thing. So he knows me. He knows me really well. But he could just sense that was some things that I wanted to talk about, and he didn't think I'd have talked to anyone about it. And makes me a bit emotional about talking about it. But do you know what I mean? He got that view that it was probably important.
Yeah. That's amazing. Someone like that is worth the weight in gold, to be fair, to be able to recognize. You just basically did exactly what our training is: recognize the signs, ask the question, and listen well. So, that's it is ridiculously simple, really. And it's maybe too simple because people want some sort of solution, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? You can't make anyone do anything. But there's more power in that person realizing that they can do it, and sometimes you need that space. It's worked for me multiple times. We've saved many lives doing it. So I think it probably seems a bit too simple and a bit too easy for people to actually realize that it works.
Obviously, your profession, your career, and everything's been built around the barber shop, but not everyone's a barber. I would never try doing it. How does it in a normal workplace? I have a team who are spread all around Europe, so I have a touch point with them perhaps once a quarter, something like that. More than that. How do you think that we can be better managers and leaders and identify the challenges that people might be going through, or the issues people might be going through?
Yeah, I think we have worked with lots of different companies in different sectors, and from construction to corporate to all sorts now. And I think that these it's all about the early intervention for me. And I think when we go and do the pop-ups and do the haircuts on site, we often so we're doing something with UBS again in a couple of weeks, the bank UBS, and they have a thing called mental wealth, which is like their in-house organization that helps with mental health. But when we do our pop-ups, they're there as well, because we've had it where people, they sit in the chair and they're not even aware that mental wealth is a thing in the company. So it's a great way of us interacting and reassuring them. But we have people in the chair that will say, I don't want to say anything to the company because I'm scared I'm going to lose opportunity, lose my job. We even have people say, I'm scared I'm going to get sectioned or whatever it is. But I'm saying, look, we've come in because they want us to be here. They want to help you. No business wants anyone off from work, essentially, because it's merely a loss of money. So, mental health costs something like 46 billion quid last year to UK businesses. So people don't want to have these people off. So if we can get them early intervention and reassure them that these resources are there, but also the resources in businesses, I think, need to be better rather than tick box exercises. We've gone in and, we've got 50 mental health first aiders. But who are they? Have they got good relationships with the work team? Have they got, and I think sometimes like what we're trying to do with the training side is training rather than the managers and the C-level and all those sorts of things, training the actual everyday workers, the colleagues in the office space, so that's where these conversations are happening over the coffee machine or, in the lifts or whatever. It's about recognizing the changes in behavior, and who sees that more than the close colleagues that are working together. Like you said, you see people once a quarter maybe to check in on different things because you're managing such a big team. It's about the people on the ground and supporting one another and having these conversations, because they there was another study, but it said that people talking to a colleague or someone in their community is just as effective for I can't remember the exact terminology of it, but like simpler mental health issues like depression, anxiety, just as effective talking to a colleague or family member or community member than it is talking to a GP about it. So these conversations if they can happen between the workforce with a little bit of simple training to know that, give them permission to, really. It's empowering them to know they can do it and realize they don't have to fix and solve it. Then that's how we get this early intervention in place. So I think for workplaces, rather than just having these tick boxes, mental health, we've got so many mental health first aiders, or we've got this organization within the company or whatever, this is available, getting down to the actual workforce and giving them some basic training. So you've got people scattered through the workforce doing it, rather than these allocated people that, like we said earlier on, guys don't go to these people. They don't go to them. I don't want to be seen knocking on the office door of the mental health first aider. Do you know, there's that barrier there. But when they can talk to their people side to them on the same level, then people are much more free talking. And if they have the skill set, then hopefully it's about that early intervention and preventing serious mental health issues and potential suicide.
I was you sort of answered my next question, but it's sort of interesting to get your view on it. You must work with a lot of companies who go, well, we've got all these things in place, that must solve it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, right? And it's not, I think it's we've got some helplines and things like that in our business, but actually having that knowledge around in the company would be really probably more beneficial to people.
It's funny you say that, because people do I won't say the name of the company, but there's another company that said they had 10,000 employees and they've got this great thing on I won't say what it was called either, just in case, but it's a great thing. And it's amazing. And they do all this sort of stuff, blah, 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 blah. And they proudly say that, no one's using it because they're all okay, because we have such a great culture. I'm like, no one's using it because they don't want to use it. I bet there's people in 10 out of the 10,000 that you've got, there's got to be people struggling. Is there people off with mental health? Or there was kind of using the fact that no one used that as the numbers say that everyone was okay, rather than looking at like maybe, there's this many people off. How many of them are off because of mental health issues, stress levels, all the rest of it? And also another thing which would be great for companies is, we found it difficult in the past, and we've done panel talks at companies and stuff like that, is getting C-level people to talk about their struggles, because I believe anyone at C-level in anything has gone through some shit and has struggles with stress or whatever it is, and especially, they must have done, because it's not an easy route to the top, is it? So getting those people to talk about it, because stories about struggling and even suicide attempts and moving past that, those stories are proven to save lives, but we often don't talk about them, especially guys, because there's a shame involved again, right? But those stories give people hope and keep people alive. I think it's two per locality of the story being told. So it's quite a high impact to share that story of, I was there, I struggled, I even contemplated suicide, but I'm here now and I'm CEO of whatever, or managing director of whatever, because that just shows people that maybe struggling, there's life beyond the darkness.
And I think also it's even more prevalent in some cultures as well. Sort of like parallel story I like telling is the Netflix culture. If they opened up so anyone could have as much holiday as they wanted, and the problem was in Japan was that the leaders didn't want to take. Japan, you don't really take holiday. That's not what you do. And then the leaders weren't taking holiday, and so their staff below them didn't want to take holiday because they couldn't take more holiday than the leader. So what they actually did was put a contract in that the leaders had to take holiday, and when they came back, they had to show that they'd been on holiday and do a presentation to show so people took it. But it sort of shows that in some cultures it's even going to be harder than in the UK, perhaps the culture of people, but because it's just not what you do. You don't show weakness. You don't show that lack of strength.
100%, and definitely it's funny because when I was cutting hair on stage as global barber director, I was, like I said, I was everywhere from Brazil to Lithuania, wherever, anywhere, all over these places. And that was one of the things that made me decide to stop doing that side of things, the haircuts on stage, because like, there's loads of people doing haircuts on stage. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, the millions of them. But when I was coming off stage and we had like the after parties or gatherings afterwards, people would always gravitate towards me and talk to me about mental health, because I'd mention it when I was on stage what I was doing. And that was the main focus. Maybe my haircuts were shit and they didn't want to talk to me about the haircuts, but they talked to me about the mental health. And that was everywhere I went, from Brazil, all over North America, Canada, Hawaii, Australia, all over Switzerland, Lithuania, Taiwan. That's what they wanted to talk to me about afterwards. And it was amazing to think that just by me talking about it gave them permission to come up and talk about something that was either their opinion of mental health, or they were struggling with something, or they'd lost a friend, and I thought, well, it's a global issue. It's a very human issue. It doesn't care. Mental health doesn't care where you're from, what you believe, or whatever. It's something that we all deal with. But obviously, there's different cultures around the beliefs of it. Like we did something in Dubai years ago, and they set up. It was like a global government conference thing, and they set up this amazing barbershop for us on a stand with screens behind a mirror showing our videos and all sorts of stuff. And everyone would come up to us, "This is amazing what you're doing, but we don't have suicide here." I'm like, all right, okay. So, because it's illegal, so it doesn't exist apparently. So yeah, the culture thing is a very interesting thing, and I think that people are getting more comfortable with mental health. It's become very mainstream, but I also think there needs to be a lot more education around what it actually is and how to have these conversations, because everyone's telling people to talk about it, but not many people know how to listen well and how to, so we're missing opportunities there, basically.
I saw, you probably would have seen it, there was a very moving thing that Norwich City did at the football club. It was brilliant advert, hit home with friends that I sit with at football and things. And I think those sorts of things are there which start the conversation, which perhaps wasn't happening a few years ago. But as you said, it's then converting into that. And so my question sort of around that is, like, if you're running a business, you're running community groups, you're running organizations and things, what's the one thing they could probably do to start the right conversations or open things up more?
I think it's very visibility of around giving people permission to do so, and showing people that if they do open up, there's a positive response to it. I think getting higher ups talking about it is a great way of doing that. Letting people know that this is here, this is what we care about you. We don't want you to be struggling with anything. We want to, and showing and not just speaking, the actions as well. Letting people know there is support there for them, and we want people to be okay. We want this to be a great working environment, and the best way you can do that is by getting people who have been through it higher up, talking about it in the company, what we've already spoken about. Align that with training and early intervention stuff, and I think you're going to change the culture. That's what it's all about, right? It's changing that culture and removing that fear and shame around mental health. And I think there's been I think for guys, definitely at the moment, I mean, it was a little bit off the topic of what you said, but I think for guys generally at the moment, it could be a difficult world. There's a lot of bad press around men. There's a lot of guys I've spoken to thousands of men over the last 20 odd years about struggles. And there's a lot of nowadays, in the last recent few years, there's a lot of guys that don't know what it means to be a guy, or what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, what they should be saying, how they should wear, what they should dress like, and I think there's a lot of confusion and loss of identity of guys, and don't really know. And then you get stuff like the manosphere stuff going off, and you've got all these little, it affects generally a lot of the younger lot, but then they don't have many men role models talking about good things. It's just a very difficult space and a difficult place to be a guy at the moment. So I think there's a sort of, tell people to be open and emotionally intelligent, and then when they are, they get the piss taken out of them, basically. So it's sort of like a very mixed messaging, and I think there's a lot of guys that are struggling. So I think if we can get guys within corporations and businesses talking about stuff positively and reassuring guys, especially because they are they're highest affected by things like suicide. So then it makes a huge difference. I mean, I've just on that note, I've just finished writing a book, which is my I've written a couple of books before, a few books before, but it's my first fiction, and it was sort of inspired by life after divorce and all the conversations I've had over the last 20 odd years of other guys that have told me in stories and dating and modern man really is kind of and parenting as a single dad and all these kind of things and trying to build businesses and jobs and whatever. But it was really interesting because I gave the manuscript to a few female friends of mine for them to read. And the overall response was, I didn't realize men felt like that. I thought that was, sort of exclusively female emotions. And it was just strange to think that that's how people see men. Or women see men, the women, I'm not generalizing to all women, but the people that I gave it to, the overall response was that. And I think it's really important that that is portrayed for guys, and guys can be understood, but can feel that way, have permission to feel that way and be understood and be allowed to have issues. Like your great friend who took you to the pub and let you speak about it and didn't judge you and didn't just let you speak. And that's what we need as well.
You've talked about weakness a couple of times as well, right? I think it's as a guy, I went through some challenges a couple of years ago, and I got a life coach for a bit, and I've had counselling, and I've had counselling since that. And the counselling sometimes is just an hour for me to vent and moan. I'm not ashamed to say that I've had those, and I'm not ashamed to say at the time that those two people helped me through a really difficult time in my life. And I think opening up and saying that, I think most people at work and people who know me would say I'm quite a confident person and I'm all right and there's no problems. But actually, to say that is part of opening up and making it easier for people to also accept it.
That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about. I've had very struggling the last couple of years and had 2 years of probably the hardest years of my life. So definitely thought about suicide. Definitely, struggled with stuff. I tried lots of different things. Luckily I have a big knowledge around the whole situation, but the hypnotherapy worked very well for me. It was the whole looking at the positive side of everything rather than, because I found for me personally with therapy, it was very much like, I'm having a good day. I've got therapy today. And then venting for an hour about something and then leaving and being like, I feel shit now. It's like, so I for me, that didn't work so much. I felt like I was being dragged into the cycle. So the hypnotherapy for me was just incredible. I had a lovely therapist called Anna who was just, and I'd never thought of it. I thought it was all very sort of like they're going to hypnotize me, but it wasn't. It's all very much about sort of positive outlook and looking at taking the positive things and changing your mindset. And it made a huge difference to me. It definitely helped me.
Somebody comes on your training. What do you hope they are going to take away from it? What are they going to come back with all the skills, or are they just going to go, okay, I've registered that?
Look, I think it's about empowering people to go, I can do this. Giving them permission to do it, being able to just go and say, look, so we've had 8 people now that have come on the course, not all the same time over the last few years, who have said to me at the beginning, I'm here, or call me to one side, I'm here because I've lost someone to suicide and I didn't recognize that they were struggling. And at the end of the day, those people came to me and said, you know what, I did recognize they were being over social and out all the time partying, or I did recognize that they were isolating or drinking too much or whatever, but I didn't ask them a question because I was scared of the answer. And now they're not here. And I used to just justify their behavior. It's because of this, because of that, because I was scared of it. And it's really sad, but also it's quite reassuring that people can recognize when people are feeling this way, through the changes in behavior. But hopefully by the end of the course, they have the confidence to ask the question and realize, I think we don't ask the question because we're scared of the answer and not being able to fix and solve it for them. But we don't need to fix and solve it for them. We just need to ask the question and listen to them. And hopefully they can fix and solve it themselves. That's the best case scenario, right? We just recognize, we ask, and we listen, and they go away and they feel better about the situation, especially if we get early intervention. Worst case scenario is it's a moment of crisis. How do we keep them safe? They are suicidal. All else fails, we get an ambulance or a doctor, police to come and keep them safe and keep us safe as well as the listener. Because that's just as important. And then the middle ground is we've recognised, we've asked, we've listened, we've offered them signposting information. And maybe as a barber, we keep up that conversation with them every 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is. And we have those conversations. Oh, how did it go? Did you try out therapy? Did you try the gym? Did that work for you? Have you been to Andy's Man Club? Have you, whatever it may be? So it's all about catching those moments, making the most of them, and empowering people with the ability and confidence to do so. Like I said, not trying to diagnose, cure, or whatever, prescribe anything. It's just about having great conversations and keeping both the listener and the sufferer safe, really.
You've been through a lot personally. You've been through a lot through your career. What sort of golden rules or biggest takeaways? If somebody said, Tom, give me some advice, what's the biggest bit of advice you would give to somebody?
Never give up, never surrender. Something my nan always used to say years and years ago. The whole "this too shall pass" thing. I think there's great moments, and you think everything's going to go well forever, and it doesn't. And then the shit moments, and you think that's going to go on forever, and it doesn't. I think just keep on. You got to keep on going. I think don't suffer alone. There are people. You are loved. There's people out there. I just think it's about that ability to keep pushing forward. Obviously, I know some people might say that misaligns with what I'm saying about, it's okay not to feel okay, but it isn't okay not to feel okay. So, to stay that way, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think, you've got to try and move forward, look after yourself, look after those around you, and, build that community and safe people around you. Because, people say, like, I'm self-made. No one's self-made. No one in the world is self-made. You've been given opportunities. You've been given, times along your pathway. There's been points where people have offered you opportunities and what have you. So I think, remember, you're not alone. Don't suffer alone. And just never give up, never surrender. That's what I actually got it tattooed on my leg last birthday for the first, something that's been said to me since I was little, very little. It's about that resilience, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. And a new day will come and something will change and it can get better. Right?
Yeah, and you feel when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it will. And people said to me, "Come on, honestly, it will get better." And I'm like, "How can it get any better?" Everything. I used to I use this analogy. It felt like every time I was turning a corner, I'd bump into a clown. It was like laughing at me, and trip me up with his big boots, and then I'd get myself up again, turn another corner, there'd be another clown. It was constant. It just felt like one thing after another over the last couple of years, and it just becomes a point where you start to get your mojo back, whatever that is. That mine was through the gym, hypnotherapy, and my support group and my family. Resilience and the whole never give up, never surrender thing, and I kind of got back to myself, having the energy. Writing my book was great, very cathartic for me. It was great writing that. So yeah, just say never give up, never surrender. Just keep going.
No, I mean I remember, but I remember. There was my darkest day before I got the support was just literally sitting on the edge of my bed and literally not knowing how I was going to didn't have the suicide thing, but I wasn't sure how I was going to get through the day and what that then meant the next day. And then, a few little things happened in that day. I messaged a few people, they came back and it was like, oh, okay, we'll get through it. And then the next day comes and is a bit better and you get through it, don't you? Just by taking a day at a time, not looking too big a picture.
Yeah, exactly that. So taking action, it does make a reaction, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and getting that support. Tom, it's been absolutely amazing to talk to you. So many things, and I know I'm going to put some links in the show notes about where to find this support and get some of this help support. To end on a slightly lighter note, as I said at the start, we do end with some lighter questions on it all, just for everyone to answer. They are rapid fire, but sometimes they turn into discussions because people tell stories. So the longer answer is fine, but they don't have to be rapid fire if you've got a point. So are you an Apple or Android user?
Apple.
You said that with a bit of...
Yeah, I know, because all the tech guys, all my geeky friends take the piss for being Apple, don't they? They all love Samsung and Android, and so they can, I don't know, edit it or modify it. I'm not technically gifted. I'm a hairdresser.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, what's your platform of choice?
I'd say LinkedIn and Instagram, the two. that I'm on the most.
When Tom's relaxing, where does Tom go? Does he go beach, the city, hills, mountains? What do you like?
I live in Torquay, so I try and go for a swim in the sea most days. We've had easterly winds for the last few days, which is very frustrating because the waves are a bit choppy. It's a bit dangerous. So I haven't been in this week. So I'm in the sun shining and I'm desperate to go in the sea. But if it's not the beach at the end of the road, then it's up on the moors.
Lovely. Swimming in the Atlantic at -4 doesn't sound like my idea of fun, but there we go. Each their own. Would you rather, obviously you live where you are, would you rather live in the town or the country?
In the country, definitely.
Would you travel first class or would you save the money?
I'd save the money, 100%. I've travelled the world in economy. I've gone to Brazil for 3 days in economy. If I can do that, I can go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Are you a morning or night person?
Am I a morning or night person? Morning, definitely.
You're going to say the answer to this one: exercise, is it important or not? Both mental health and for you as well.
Right? It's essential, I'd say.
Would you rather innovate or would you rather improve?
Innovate, I'd say.
Challenge the status quo or not to challenge?
I'm challenging it all the time, so challenge the status quo when it comes to mental health. Yeah.
And I'm at a bar. What's the drink of your choice?
Whiskey sour or an old fashioned, I think, would be the two. What would it be? I don't know. I'd have to. Maybe I'll have whiskey sour first and then old fashioned after.
Very good, Tom. As I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, there's some emotional bits for me on that journey as well, talking to you about it as well and bringing back some memories. But thank you very much for joining. And I hope that even if just one person's listened to this, they've got something out of it, right? That's the important thing. So thank you for that.
I appreciate being able to come on. And if anyone is suffering out there, don't suffer alone. You're not alone. So, and if anyone thinks that someone's suffering, then ask them. Just ask them outright how they're doing. And I want to get this on the podcast itself, but there are 2 great, amazing resources to go to: mental health wise, hubofhope.co.uk, and then any situational issues like financing children, parenting, housing, whatever, mypickle.org. So if anyone is struggling, go to those. They will be a directory to all the different resources.
And that's fantastic. And I'll put a link to those in the show notes. Amazing. And put that on some of the social media as well. Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for your time.
No problem.
Thanks, Tom, for joining us again today on the Business Takeaway podcast. Not perhaps our usual subject matter, but one very important. And for anyone who runs a business or runs a company, the stats of 1 in 4 people suffer from mental health challenges means that some of your team will be going through all of that. So it's really important for us as business owners, business leaders, and similar to be listening to these subject matters. So thank you very much for Tom joining. As I said, there are resources for all of this, which I'll put in the show notes and links to Tom's website and obviously the resources that he talked about at the end of the recording. If this is the first episode of the Business Takeaway podcast that you've joined, thank you very much for joining us. There are plenty of other episodes in our back catalogue for you to go and listen to on lots of different subjects with lots of different industry experts in their own field. There's plenty also more to come. We've got some great guests lined up, so please do make sure you are subscribed, you're liking us, and hopefully giving us a good review as well. If you aren't subscribed on the platform that you're on today, please do. And also you can find us at Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and all the platforms of your choice. Just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show.